That was a good start, I hope. We heard a Tanbura, a member of the family of harp instruments, recorded in Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates, and we saw the same instrument on the 19th century picture that I showed. I will come back to that instrument and to that picture later on. Hello to all. Good afternoon from Amsterdam. My name is Neil van der Linde. I'm grateful to Giza for inviting me to participate in this conference, and I'm grateful to Manfred for moderating this session. I will look with you at a range of harp instruments coming from sub-Saharan East Africa, traveling into North Africa and across the Indian Ocean. The history of slavery is part of the story, so I will deal with that as well. But let's first turn to the west part of the world for a comparison. In the culture that the enslaved from Africa brought to the Americas, ancestral African music and rites were preserved in secret and in the open, often embedded in Christianity, the dominant religion of the sadly found new homeland, or in popular entertainment culture. Think of chain gang songs, gospel music, blues, jazz, the Winti culture of the Dutch former colony Suriname, voodoo on Haiti, salsa, Rastafari culture of Jamaica, etc. It is a bit less well known that across the Indian Ocean, similar processes of adaptation and assimilation took place. This is a map of the Indian Ocean. On the left, there's Africa, and on the right, the Indian subcontinent and further. And on the northern side, we see the Arabic Peninsula and Iran, with the Persian Gulf in between. This is a picture from 17th century India. The museum in Cleveland, where it comes from, describes it as African lyre player, circa 1640 to 1660. The description continues. The anonymity of the subject of this painting obscures whether this is a portrait of a historical person or a generic depiction of a musician. The instrument in his hands is a bow lyre called nganga, of the type from Nubia in northern eastern Africa. Many Africans, mainly from Ethiopia, settled in the Deccan on the western coast of southern India, where they found employment as soldiers, mercenaries, and administrators. So we are talking about halfway the 17th century. The anthropologist Amy Catlin Jairus-Boy and the late Nazir Jairus-Boy have carried out a research on the Sidi communities, Sidi being Indian and Pakistani communities of African descent, whose ancestors, as the researchers state, came as entrepreneurs, soldiers, and not the least as enslaved Africans. The communities they studied are based across the state of Gujarat in the west of India. These communities, until quite recently, still used various instruments connected to African culture. The researchers found copies of the same lyre instrument that we just saw on the 17th century picture from the Deccan, the nganga. However, the instruments nowadays were not being played anymore. The copies the researchers found only functioned as decorations in sanctuaries, and the strings were gone. A well-known music researcher from the Sidi communities, Wasim Jamadar, is trying to revive the nganga, but for the moment he's also concentrating on another type of inherited instrument, which was used among the African India community as well, the malunga, a one-string plucked musical bow. Now let's continue with the relation between the African diaspora across the Indian Ocean with slavery. Here is a map of the slavery trade routes during the 9th till the 11th century. Almost all the empires ruling the ocean had practiced slavery, the Babylonians probably, the Persians, the Arabs, as well as the Portuguese and the Dutch. Here is a map from 1658 printed in Amsterdam. At that time, the Dutch were the most powerful seafarers on the Atlantic and on the Indian Ocean. Remarkably, the Indian Ocean here is named Erythrae Rubrum, something like the Red Sea of Eritrea. Actually, the map marks the year 1658 when the Dutch expelled the Portuguese from Sri Lanka and took over their plantations. Had you noticed what was written under the opening picture that I showed you? Here we see the picture again. The text reads as Negersklaven mit dem Tanbura Orchester, which is German, translated as black slaves with the, that's how it's written, black slaves with the Tanbura Orchestra. This is a picture from around 1885, made at the Dutch consulate in Jeddah in current Saudi Arabia on the west side of the Arab Peninsula by the famous and in fact notorious Dutch Orientalist Christian Sloeke Gronje. The tambura or tanbura, tumbura, whatever, is that large upright harp-like instrument at about 1.5 meters high. Also, we see several drums, and note the belt that the man in front is wearing. This is a musical instrument too, a manjoor made from goat hooves stitched to a cloth which then is tied around the waist. So this picture was made at the end of the 19th century. Now watch my first clip, recorded recently in the United Arab Emirates on the other side of the Arab Peninsula, featuring the Nobar ensemble from Dubai and Sharjah. You will see the same instruments. Ensemble is Tahar Ismail, a retired army officer, and he's probably the only one in the Emirates who still makes these tambura harps. Here he is in a clip made at the Sharjah Directorate of Heritage. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, la ilaha illallah, Nur Muhammad sallallahu. An article on Tahar Ismail says that the music in its natural environment is part of a traditional zikr, a ritual with connections to Sufism, where religious eulogies are sung to inspire a listener's soul. This tradition does have references to African rituals, maybe to what from a Muslim or Christian point of view would be called pagan, but what's in a name. And in some cases across the Arab Peninsula and in the south of Iran, in such rituals, Swahili words, the dominant East African language, continues to be used. A tambura is made from bamboo, textile ornaments, animal tendons for the strings, and down below, a sound box made from a wooden bowl covered with animal skin. Note that the instrument is pentatonic, similar to the tonal scale that is common in a lot of sub-Saharan African music. The strings are played by the right hand and strumming them with a piece of bone and creating the chords with the fingers of the left hand. The use of the instrument might seem folkloric, but Kuwaiti musicologist Ahmed Awasser sent me a video from 1967 showing a much more popular use of this instrument in a classical song from Kuwait by the popular singer Abdul Mohsin Al-Muhammad. And yes, in the middle we have the tambura. This song is not pentatonic, and two performers have this belt of goat hooves on, the manjoor, that produces this rustling sound. I first encountered the tambura in Egypt during a czar, a syncretic ritual mixing Islam with ancient religious pagan or even ancient Christian elements from sub-Saharan Africa, sometimes with incantations again in Swahili, the language of East Africa. Frowned upon by the various governments, zars are practiced by communities from African descent in Egypt, the Sudan and Iran, and previously they were also practiced on the Arab Peninsula, but they have been mainly rooted out. Here's a clip from the ensemble Mazaher from Cairo. Nubia in the south part of Egypt and the north part of Sudan has a different kind of harp. Here is the Lebanese star singer Abir Nehme singing a song with a player on a Nubian lyre, which looks mostly like what is named the semsimia. Here we have another example from Bahrain, another state on the Arab Peninsula on the Persian Gulf side. Again, demonstrating that these ancient-looking instruments can take part in contemporary popular music. Some claim all these instruments originally came from Mesopotamia and then crossed through the Arab Peninsula into Africa, from where it returned with the black communities across the Indian Ocean, of which I showed you several examples. Here we see a detail of the standard of Ur showing a Sumerian harpist and a ruler about 2,500 years before Christ. And there we have the famous golden lyre or bull's lyre found in Ur in southern Iraq, also 2,500 years before Christ. But we find ancient harps on wall paintings from pharaonic Egypt as well. And there was the Greek lyre. There was the harp of King David in the Bible. So it's very well possible that all these musical instruments were invented in several locations at once. So not all of these instruments are forgotten. On the contrary, here is a great picture of the late Egyptian Nubian classical avant-garde composer Halim El-Dab with what looks like a semsimia. And also younger generations demonstrate that these old lyres can be alive and kicking. This last clip comes from a dance party in Mukalla in Yemen. In Amsterdam 2 months ago, I met two musicians naming themselves the Ardulis Band, playing an ancient harp instrument still common in their home country Eritrea, as well as in neighboring Ethiopia. The instrument is named the krar, which you can also make by cutting an electric guitar in half, as you will see.
فريحك فريحك أقاقي نعينك يقونك فريحك فريحك نعينك يقونك كابتن السمرانا السمرانا بلا بالأول ما شاولي ولا صلاق عين السمرا شاول سلا سايلا كل جزء بعدا كل جزء بايلا.
The original krar is still being practiced as well. Look at this picture of a band of Ethiopian krar players taking part in an official ceremony. To conclude, here's a snippet of the slick, poppy sound of the krar collective from Ethiopia, performing in the US.
You got it tuned to WOPOP at KEXP 90.3 FM, and it is with great pleasure to introduce the Krar Collective, first time in Seattle. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome, thank you.
Can we hear some music, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
As a bonus encore, I invite you to watch DJ Juke and MC Zo from Tanzania playing what sounds like a sampled krar on high speed in a local style of urban dance music that is now making waves among the suburban youth of East Africa named Singele. This was captured live at WOMAC 2019 in Tampere, Finland. I thank you for your attention.
What's it going to